Well, welcome, everybody, to another edition of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis, from the flight deck. And, of course, that means some smart talk radios in your future. In this segment, we are very pleased to have with us Mr. Bryan Bailey. Who's Bryan Bailey? He's a nationally recognized, award-winning animal behaviorist who shared his expertise with Fox and Friends, Sirius XM, Dog World, At Home, Mid-South Tennessee, Bloom Magazine, and Fox News, along with countless veterinarians, dog owners, and celebrities. Very uniquely qualified in this area. He's a nationally certified master trainer, a decorated veteran of the U.S. Navy, works extensively as a supervisor and trainer for the U.S. Navy's Dolphin and Sea Lion program. He's an honor graduate of the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy with duties including training and supervising the Monroe County Sheriff's Department canine narcotics detection, on and on and on and on and on, much of which we will talk about in this upcoming conversation with Bryan Bailey. Bryan, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good. Let's do this. Let's give our Lewis at Large listeners a little bit more background about you. Tell us, starting with your work in the service, how'd you become involved with animals?
Well, I joined the Navy, and I joined the Navy because I knew ahead of time that they had a marine mammal project. But, boy, the road to get to that was very long. I had to go through what's called explosive ordnance disposal training. It's a bomb squad type training, well over a year in length, very intensive. But then the funny thing is kind of how the military works. I went through all of that training, but then really never utilized very much of it except for the diving portion of it to work with all the years I worked with the marine mammal systems.
Did you know, have you always been an animal lover? Was that always something close to your heart?
Always. I was raised in Fairbanks, Alaska, studied wolves up there, always. In fact, it's all I've ever done. I've always just worked with animals.
What about, again, with the work that you did with animals? You worked with dolphins, you worked with dogs. Techniques, is philosophically the approach the same for both?
Actually, it's quite different. You're dealing with a dolphin, you're dealing with an exotic animal, and also an incredibly intelligent animal, very, very intelligent, to such a degree that any time we were interacting with these dolphins, you had a secondary trainer that was standing back at a distance observing, either filming or writing notes, taking notes, because then we'd have trainers meetings, and we would point out to one another how the dolphin started training the human being. Dogs, they're domestic animals, meaning they respond to your touch. They actually can temporally respond back just because of your voice, because you touch them. They're willing to work for that. But these dolphins we had and these sea lions, if you didn't bring fish, they wouldn't give you the time of day. You have to use fish to motivate them, food to motivate them to work. So it was a big change. I would train dolphins during the day, and dogs during the evening and on the weekends. And I used to joke around and said, wow, it's like hopping out of a Ferrari and then driving a Volkswagen.
Yeah.
No disrespect to our dogs. It's just quite different.
Right. And those dolphins sound like they had you trained pretty well.
They did. They did. I enjoyed working those programs. Very fascinating, learned a lot. And, and even still, you still learn a lot about behavior. You learn about nature. There's a threat among all social predators, how they conduct themselves, hierarchical issues. Those are all a template. And then it just branches off from there depending on what it is you're working with, whether it be a land animal or a sea animal. But there are templates that just hold all these creatures together.
Well, you have a brand new workout called Embracing the Wild in Your Dog, and timely as January is National Train Your Dog Month. We've had dog trainers on in the past, but your experience with other animals kind of it complements what you're doing. I'm curious as to what is the primary thought process when someone has a new animal, or frankly an old one, maybe a dog that has been with the family for many, many years, and a lot of people think they're getting too old, or the relationship's too long to train them. But is it possible to train an animal at any age and at any stage of a relationship?
It is. I tell people all the time, as long as there's blood and oxygen coursing through the brain, we can modify it. The issue that you deal with older dogs, as you heard us saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, yes, you can. But dogs are creatures of association. They become locked into what we call fixed action patterns. And to give you a human example, if you've been driving for a long time, it's the reason why we can text and drive, unfortunately. We have motor responses that are just working automatically. If you see a red light, you stop. If you go to a foreign country and you rent a car, you don't know the rules of the road, if you see a red light, you stop. Even if that country said, hey, over here when the light turns red, we go. When it turns green, we stop. You would still mess that up probably for about 2 months and have a couple accidents before you finally got it right. So that's like dogs. They have these fixed action patterns, and you just have to work against those. You either have to tear those down and start a whole new one, or you have to come up with another behavior that can just run parallel with that one. So it does take a little bit more work, but really actually not that much.
One of the things that you feel philosophically that dogs overall are becoming more and more aggressive as a breed. Tell us why that is.
Here, and it's almost a unique American problem. It really is. Genetics plays a major role in this. Out in the wild, when wolves breed, it's dominant genetic baseline with dominant genetic baseline. And there's only two, because nature created what's called an evolutionary stable strategy. That was to keep competition in check when you have a bunch of, you might as well not even sugarcoat it, predators or killers living together. You got to make sure they cooperate and work cohesively. So she made sure that not all predators were hardwired the same. Some were dominant. They're to muscle the pack. They repel alien wolves. They hunt the large game. And others are born with a submissive genetic baseline, meaning born a wee bit fearful. Therefore, they're more apt to just want to ride in the bus versus drive the bus. And therefore, it keeps competition in check. Well, we still get that. Even though we breed dominant plus dominant, we still get dominant over submissive. Here in America, most people have no clue what their genetic baseline of their dog is when they breed it. And so inadvertently, we're breeding submissive to submissive, and we're creating even more and more and more fearful animals. And most aggression in this country is fear-driven. It's a misperception where the dog views certain actions, certain people, certain other dogs as hostile or threatening to them, and that's the major problem.
Well, let's take and again, if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the Flight Deck of Lewis at Large Radio, talking to Bryan Bailey. He is a nationally recognized award-winning animal behaviorist, spent quite a bit of time training animals in the Navy. He's a decorated veteran, also has a brand new work called Embracing the Wild in Your Dog, as we talk about January being National Train Your Dog Month. Bryan, let's just do a quick little case study here, and I know you can't. We're asking you to generalize, and everything's a little bit different. But a family has a dog. It could be a puppy, could be an older dog that is not house trained. What's sort of the basic process to get a dog house trained? A, can they all be house trained? And B, sort of what's the timeline on that?
Well, they can all be house trained unless we're dealing with some sort of physiological issue like a urinary tract infection or gastrointestinal infection. But outside of that, from a fundamental behavioral aspect, they can all be trained. What I've experienced over the last 30 years is that I found that a lot of it has to do with incentive. People with small dogs like little Yorkies or Chihuahuas or something of that breed there, they don't seem to be as inclined or as motivated to want to get the training done. It's because it's a small little mess. And I've noticed that people who own Great Danes and Mastiffs and big German Shepherds and Rottweilers, yes, they want to housebreak their dog. So, but the most important thing when doing this is view the world through the eyes of a dog. If you ever want your dog to understand good dog for doing something good or bad dog for doing something bad, you literally have 2 seconds to apply the reward or the punishment after the act if you want the dog to associate that reward or punishment with the act. Their brain was hardwired from an instant feedback world, not variable, instant feedback, not delayed reward mechanisms. And I tell everyone, go out into the wild, sit on a cactus, and tell me how long it takes you to get that feedback. And that's the way of the wild. You step on thin ice, you get kicked by a hoof, you bite a porcupine. It's instant feedback world, so their brain was not designed to deal with delayed feedback. And that's the biggest mistake people make. They find their dog goes potty, they show it to them minutes or hours later, punish them, and they think, that'll teach them. And soon what it teaches the dog is that it's not dangerous to go potty in the house. Just don't go potty in front of the human being. Or even if I do go potty and the human being shows up, run, hide. And then that reinforces our thinking because we think that they're acting guilty. They're just trying to thwart the punishment that occurs when you arrive.
What about other things such as barking? When the doorbell rings, or barking at all. What about is it possible to get it where you've got a one-word command or some kind of a command and it just stops?
Oh, it is, and I definitely train that. I have 4 dogs. I've always owned multiple dogs, and I really like it when my dogs bark when there's someone at the door. Thank you for announcing their presence. You're going to know their presence long before I will. But when I recognize that is someone that I've invited to that door and I'm possibly going to bring into my home, then we use a word simply quiet, and we train the dogs to be quiet upon cue. And then we also train the dogs to become more discriminate about barking, meaning do bark only under these conditions. But if a dog is barking 6 houses down the street, then I don't want you barking. In other words, we eliminate nuisance barking and have a real valid reason to bark. But once again, you have to view it from the perspective of your dog. Wolves in the wild repel alien wolves. They do not tolerate an incursion by an alien wolf on their territory. So the domestic version is sound the alarm. Someone is now on our territory, an alien wolf, an alien biped. And it also starts to build aggression because a lot of times these people that show up on your territory happens to be the UPS man, the FedEx man, the mailman. They drop off their goods and leave regardless of what your dog does. But your dog doesn't see it that way. Your dog goes, my actions, my barking scared that thing off, not realizing they have more packages to deliver. And as the weeks and months go by, you suddenly have a dog who just wants to tear your entire front door down to get at the FedEx man or the UPS man because obviously their previous efforts weren't good enough, so they had to keep raising the stakes a little bit.
Bryan, do you find, are there particular breeds that are extremely difficult to train versus other ones that might be extremely easy? Or if you know what you're doing, so to speak, are they all pretty much the same?
Well, I find that there's varying intelligence, which is even within the breed. For example, if you say, typically herding breeds still have a very powerful harmonic gene, which makes them able to, I'm going to get these sheep with these sheep, and then we get the whole group of sheep over here next to the shepherd who's got a gate open and a pen. That's problem solving, high problem solving. It requires intelligence on the part of the animal doing the work, but also requires a harmonic resonance with the human being. But I have found that even within those, like border collies, I have trained some border collies that were incredibly intelligent, and I have trained some that, oh my gosh, after 500 sits, they're looking at me going, have we been over that yet, Bryan? It definitely varies, but definitely the herding breeds are the dogs that tend to be a little bit easier to train.
What kind of that's another thing too, and again, I recognize it varies on what they're trying to do, but what kind of a time commitment and energy commitment and schedule should our listeners, should they expect when they want to start training their animal?
Well, I think you mentioned it. First thing is, what is the purpose of the training? What is the end goal? And then to set realistic expectations. Once again, that's the importance behind this book that I wrote. It's not a training book. It's a book about understanding what it is that you own. If you want to repair a watch or you want to modify a watch, you need to understand how the watch works first. It's the reason why I want people to understand this is that, for example, we Americans are always in a hurry. We want faster internet, faster deliveries to our house, faster everything. And we're starting to put our dogs on our speed dial. And unfortunately, there are trainers out there, and this is wrong. They are claiming that they can train your dog to be reliable off the leash before it's 6 months old. And that is not the case. Things that your dog views at 6 months may be nothing to it, like a squirrel. But a dog who's at 18 months, all of a sudden the squirrel becomes something it's now interested in and willing to chase across the highway and not come back when called. It's too much pressure at too early of a developmental period. So one, take your time. Be patient and train. I don't care what you're training your dog to do. Move slowly. Take your dog off your speed dial. And then make sure that point B is realistic. It can achieve. For example, I would never pick a basset hound to be my running partner for a marathon. Make sure the dog has the ability to do it, and make sure that these are very realistic goals that have been proven to be been done before with other dogs, typically of your same dog's temperament and breed.
Are there any differences at all, have you noticed, in training in the dog's gender?
Yes, I really have. Females are, in my experience, my own personal experience, have always tended to be much easier. they're much more focused. And I guess it's kind of like the same thing with human beings. Guys, they get distracted by the littlest things, and all it takes is a female who's possibly going through estrus or heat cycle half a mile away with a good breeze, and all of a sudden I have a bunch of male dogs that are distracted. Male dogs' brains work a little different than the female brains. That maternal, that harmonic resonance that they have, they are definitely more focused, definitely more willing to work with you. Towards the males, they've got their own agenda. I own 2 males and 2 females for my own dogs, and my males are they're knuckleheads, just, for the lack of a better word. They kind of have their own agenda. Whereas these girls that we have, they're right there. They're beautiful. So in my own personal experience, the females are easier to train.
What about when you go around and you train lots of different animals, you put on seminars and stuff, are you finding people are more and more into training than they ever have been, or are they letting their dogs just kind of do whatever they want more? What kind of trends are you seeing on that front?
The latter, by far. We have stepped into some fairy tale world where we think we own little people in fur coats, and we expect them to almost immediately govern themselves like that. And also humans are so busy. You got one kid going to soccer, another one going over here to practice being in a play, and then you have 2 jobs yourself, and then you have this to do. We're losing our ability to spend time with our dogs, and therefore we are now giving ourselves reason to not train them. And then when you add to that, there's a myriad of misinformation available, unfortunately, to the dog owner. For example, there's 15 million different methodologies nowadays, with millions of different names. That's why I love nature. Man complicates everything, but nature, she has the old KISS rule: keep it simple, stupid. There are basic, fundamental approaches to training any animal on this planet. And as long as someone keeps it simple and approaches it that way, they will get it done. But that's what I see. Mostly lack of time, lack of will. They don't want to lead their dogs. They let their children run their household and their dogs. And then they're confused by a myriad of information that's available to them.
Bryan, let's a little diversion here. We're talking again about training dogs, but I would like to hear a little bit about your work with the Navy, the Dolphin, and the Sea Lion program. Tell us a little bit about what that was all about.
Well, it's really cool that I can talk about nowadays. There was a time period which I couldn't, and that was very difficult because everyone who realized you work with marine mammals wants to know exactly what they do, and it was really hard to say, I can't tell you anything. But at that time, I worked with a project. One of the projects I worked was called Short Time. Short Time was an anti-personnel. In other words, it was a program designed to have the Dolphins defend harbored ships or ships at anchor, and also maritime coastlines from enemy or combatant swimmers or divers. So they were anti-personnel. They would literally take out that human being. We tried to kill it. The other program I worked was a program called Bottom Look, and it was an anti-mine, like a bottom-laid mine program. So, for example, you have a bunch of ships in a harbor, and your enemy doesn't want the ships going to war. They just lay a bunch of mines at the mouth of the harbor, and it's kind of like someone blocking your parking lot, and you can't go to war. These Dolphins were trained to detect these bottom-laid mines, and then carry an explosive package, lay it next to it, and then once we have enough of them out there, we all move to a safe area and then set those off remotely. And then the Quick Find program was a Sea Lion program in which the Sea Lions were trained to recover anti-submarine rockets by placing a grappling device on the end of them on a modified U-bolt, and we simply hand the line to a ship and it pulls off the bottom. And back in the early 1980s when I was doing this, the cost to send a diver to do this using mixed gas was about $250,000 to $300,000 per hour. Wow. But we could get the Sea Lion to do it for 2 tiny smelt, which are like the size of a sardine.
We'll be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.